Hi everyone, welcome back to Farrand Film and welcome back to another UK and Ireland box office top 10 update. So this is the 29th of July as I record this yesterday's weekend update. It came in quite late. They must have been checking the time counting all these Deadpool and Wolverine pounds that came in over the weekend. But just to mention what happened outside of the top 10. So at number 15, Kind to Kindness, sort of held in there a little bit. It's now grossed over 1 million. Thelma dropped down to number 14. About Dry Grasses, one of the new entries from last week, went in at 13. Bad Boys Ride or Die finally had its time in the top 10, fell to number 12, and has now grossed just under £12 million. And if from somewhere, nowhere, decided to climb back up and landed at number 11 and now has 12.3 million in terms of growth so far. It's not touching the top 10. It's not touching the top 10 of the year so far. And that is mainly because of the huge numbers that things like Despicable Me and Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine are doing so far in terms of the last few weeks. So let's get into the top 10. At number 10, down from 6 last week, is Fly Me to the Moon, which is it's likely going to be its last week in the chart. It's grossed just over 1.6 million. It did 41 grand at the weekend. Quite a significant drop to go from 6 to 10. And again, 3 weeks in the chart. I think this is it for Fly Me to the Moon. Number 9, I Saw the TV Glow. This is a new entry that opened last week. Just under 60 grand grossed at the weekend. It was quite a small opening, so it's done well enough to get into the top 10. It's a film that I'm looking forward to catching up with. I've not had a chance to watch it yet, but hopefully I'm going to be able to do that this week. That's I Saw the TV Glow. At number 8, down one place from last week's number 7, is Bad News, the Hindi language comedy film, which was produced by Amazon Prime, just under 60 grand at the weekend, for a gross so far of just over 225 grand. It's doing fairly well, but I reckon it's probably going to be an open on Amazon Prime soon if it's produced by them. Number 7, a new entry, an Indian Tamil language action film called Rayan. Now, I didn't mention this last week because there's something about these Tamil language films, these Indian films that come our way through the box office that just, for whatever reason, don't show up on schedules, don't show up on, again, the sort of lists of things that are going to be released. And I know that Mark Kermode always says on the take that these are the films that, for whatever reason, don't get press screened. So he doesn't actually get a chance to see them. So they're almost like sleeper hits. They're almost like ones that are released. I know from my time working in the cinema, I'm working in a cinema that referred to themselves as one of the Bollywood sites, which is basically where they would open these Indian language films quite significantly in these areas because of the population, because of the catchment area of the cinema around, that they'd attract quite a lot of mainly big families that would come and watch these films. And I know for a fact that some of them, they just take a look at the listing, they see the one that is out that week, and they'll all go out and watch it as a sort of family. So that's how they end up doing so well. So again, I don't know whether or not it's just something to do with the way that these films are released or distributed, but number 7, Rayan, it's done all right, just under 150 grand. Number 7 in its first week. I'm now gonna have to try and factor in these films in terms of my predictions for where they are the week after, because they usually stick around for a couple of weeks. They're never really a sort of 1 week and done. So we'll see where we are later on. At number 6, down from 5 last week. So the way that this next few go is that they're all dropping one place from where they were last week. Is A Quiet Place Day 1. So just over 9.5 million so far at the box office, 5 weeks in the chart, and it grossed 168 grand at the weekend. So again, it's doing incredibly well for itself. At number 5, down from number 4, Long Legs. Long Legs proving to have long legs at the box office. 3 weeks in the chart, just under 5.7 million so far. 724,000 over the weekend. So again, it's doing really well. Again, for a sort of 15 rated horror film, it's doing really well. At number 4, down from number 3 from last week, and one of my incorrect predictions from last week is Inside Out 2, the behemoth that is. 7 weeks in the chart, now over £50 million at the UK box office, which is insane. Still managed to gross over 1 million. It's not yet had a weekend where it's not grossed less than 1 million. So it's doing incredibly well, and it's going to continue to do incredibly well. And I think that in about 4 weeks' time, as I'm gearing up to go back to work, as the summer term this September term begins, it would not surprise me at all if I'm still talking about Inside Out 2, which at that point will be 12 weeks in the chart or whatever it is. So again, down from 3 from last week. Number 4, Inside Out 2. At number 3, down from second place, is Twisters in its second week. Again, doing really well. Just under 1.5 million in this weekend's gross. And to date, somewhere around about 7.95 million. Again, doing really well. 2 weeks in the chart. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to be one of those films that I think is sticking around for the summer. The sort of the competition for this one mainly comes from Deadpool and Wolverine, I would imagine. And then somewhere down the line is going to come from things like Trap or Alien Romulus or Borderlands. But again, we'll see where those films end up. Second place, it lost its top spot. It didn't have the legs to hold on as long as Inside Out 2 did. It had 2 weeks at the top of the charts. This is Despicable Me 4. Still managed to gross just over 3 million at the weekend, which is astounding given everything else that's going on in the chart. Just over 25 million it's grossed now, so that again puts it quite high in the top 10 of the year, which we'll come to shortly, and this is its third week in the chart. But we all know number 1, it's the new entry, it's Deadpool and Wolverine now. First week in the chart, it grossed 17.27 million over the weekend, right? Now, granted, it opened on a Thursday, so it's got the sort of extra day that you're looking at there. It's already in the top 10 of the year. It's already up there with the highest grossing films of the year in its first weekend. It's only going to do more. It's only going to do better. Worldwide, I think it did something like 400 million worldwide. It's going to get to 1 billion, I reckon. And I think it's going to do it rather quickly. There's a lot of word of mouth about the cameos. I loved the cameos. I swore quite loudly in the screening that I was in when it came to the cameos. So again, I'm not gonna spoil them, but yeah, it was great. So looking at what happened last week, what I said last week. So I said Deadpool and Wolverine Despicable Me 4 were 1 and 2. I got Inside Out and Twisters the wrong way around. Long Legs was 5. Quiet Place Day 1 was 6. Fly Me to the Moon dropped much further than I thought it would do. About Dry Grasses didn't even touch the top 10. I Saw the TV Go again was still in there at number 9. And I thought Bad Boys Ride or Die would stick it out at number 10. What I've not done there at all is I've not given any credit to Bad News sticking around for an extra week, and I've not even considered Rayan, because again, I didn't even know it was coming out. So again, these sort of, whatever it is to do with the scheduling, these films keep appearing, and they're sort of throwing my predictions off. But we'll see where we get to next week. In terms of top 10 of the year, so Inside Out 2 and Dune Part 2 are still sticking around at 1 and 2. Inside Out 2 has now done 50.1 million. Despicable Me 4 is now third place. It's knocked Kung Fu Panda and Migration down. Deadpool, you can see it there, 17.2 million, means that it is the 6th highest grossing film of the UK so far this year, which has now meant that Back to Black has now dropped out of the list as well. It's dropped out of the top 10 as well. I reckon that that's probably going to carry on to fall with Godzilla and Kong and Ghostbusters, because I reckon you're looking at things like Alien Romulus possibly getting up there. I'd be interested to see if Trap makes it up there. I'd be interested to see if maybe Twisters has the legs to make it up there. A Quiet Place is sort of sticking around enough. Maybe it might squeeze in, but we'll see. We'll see where we stand on that one. And then in terms of new releases for next week, and again, who knows? There could be another Tamil language film that comes our way that for some reason isn't listed anywhere. But first one is DD, which is a coming-of-age film directed by Sean Wang in his directorial debut. Did a lot of word of mouth going around Sundance, was a bit of a sort of festival favourite. Seems like it's getting a little bit of a limited release. So I have hedged my bets a little bit in terms of where this is going to open next week. Kensuke's Kingdom is based on a novel written by Michael Maporgo, and the screenplay is written by the guy whose name I can see his face. He was on the Take with Kermode and Mayo. He is the poet laureate. He's the children's poet laureate. He wrote Millions. Name has totally gone out on my face. What's happening? But it's going to open. I think it's going to do okay. But the big one next week is Harold and that bloody purple crayon. Now, 2024 live action animated fantasy film based on the 1955 children's book. So we're going back a fair bit. this is going to get the kids in. This is going to get the families in. I don't think it's going to have the legs or the sort of buzz to do anything against Despicable Me. I think it might pip Inside Out in terms of an audience. I don't think it's going to stay around for too long. I don't think it's going to bother Deadpool and Wolverine at the top. So having said all that, let's look at my predictions for next week. So I reckon Deadpool and Wolverine is going to stick at number 1. I reckon Despicable Me 4 at 2. Harold and the Purple Crane is going to go in at 3. Inside Out 2 is going to hold at 4. Twisters is going to come down a little bit to 5. Kensuke's Kingdom is going to go in at 6. Longlegs at 7. A Quiet Place Day 1 at 8. I'm going to say that Rayanne is still sticking around and is going to drop down to number 9. But then I reckon Dee Dee is going to fall outside of the top 10. And the thing that's going to pip it is something that I've not mentioned yet. And it's the first of the Spider-Man re-releases or the reissues of Spider-Man films, is the 2002 Sam Raimi Spider-Man, which there's a bit of a buzz going around people wanting to go back and see these films in cinema. Like, they already had it in the US and it was quite successful in the US, and it became a bit of a TikTok thing that people would go and watch it and record themselves seeing the sort of classic moments on the big screen and stuff. So I reckon it's going to do okay. I reckon it's going to open at number 10. And that's just based off like that buzz, but then also the buzz of like, if Forrest Gump and The Mummy can have a decent showing when they get reissued, why can't Spider-Man? Especially if it's got the sort of pop culture, fan hysteria around it. But that means that I am saying Dee Dee's going to go outside of the top 10. The other one to mention is that there is a Blackpink concert film that's going to get released this week. Now, I don't think it's a wide release. I don't think it's a Taylor Swift Eras Tour thing where it's just going to be in every cinema going and it's just going to take over. I think it's more akin to something like a Ghost Right Here, Right Now, which when that opened earlier in the year, it did go in at number 5, but I'm sure that it only had 1 or 2 screenings in a week. So that might be something that pops up in the chart next week, but we will see. We will see where we're up to. It's been a Deadpool and Wolverine week. I think we're going to continue with it being a Deadpool and Wolverine week next week. And then the week after, you've got Trap and Borderlands. So we'll see where that one falls. Borderlands surprised me because it's got a 12A, not a 15, which I assumed that it would have. I'm assuming Trap's going to get a 15. So we'll see where that one lays. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you next week.